All right, let's continue with A Journey to the West. July 26th, one-day tour in the National Mall, just like a one-day tour in Larungar. You know how it is now. Some tourists are complaining, we only get 1 hour in Larungar. How can this be? Others say they've been in line for days and still can't get a ticket. Sentient beings in this Saha world are quite something, aren't they? But it's all fine, whether it's a one-day tour or a lifetime tour. Some stay in Larungar for a day. I am on a 40-year tour of Larungar. I've already been here for 40 years, so I don't need a one-day tour, right? Many of our Dharma friends aren't here for just a day either, but in reality, it's no longer a one-day tour. It's a 1 hour tour. If you only stay here for an hour, well, that's just how it is. So now, Larungar has become like this. One-day tour in the National Mall. On July 26th, we accompanied Yijin Nobu to the heart of the nation's capital, the National Mall. It is an important site where many national celebrations and ceremonies are held, and it's also a great tourist spot with many attractions. Yes, there's not much to explain here. The first site we visited when we went in the morning was the Washington Monument, the landmark of this capital city. Built to honor George Washington, the United States' first president. George Washington lived from 1732 to 1799, right? He was from that early period, the very first president. I've mentioned in some books that after leaving office, he became a farmer and worked the land. He enjoyed a life of relative freedom. This monument was built to honor him. It stands 555 feet tall. The US government used to have a restriction that no construction in this city could be taller than the Washington Monument. They had that requirement at the time. Indeed, most buildings there aren't very tall now, unlike in New York or San Francisco. It's not like that. There are no inscriptions cut on the monument, quite like Empress Wu Zetian's wordless tomb stele in China. Empress Wu Zetian's wordless tomb stele still stands today in the Xi'an area. There are 2 steles there, belonging to Emperor Gaozong of Tang and Empress Wu Zetian, respectively. Among all the imperial tombs, the tomb of Wu Zetian has never been excavated. On Emperor Gaozong's stele, there is a 5,000-word inscription written by Wu Zetian herself, extolling his great feats and accomplishments. But on her own stele, there is not a single word. I've seen photos before. It's quite tall. Those who enjoy traveling should go and see it sometime. Historical figures like these were indeed extraordinary during their time on Earth. Some people say that this indicates that his feats are beyond what words can describe, that they were truly magnificent, while others say that it means that his accomplishments and faults were left to be judged by later generations. This is also very interesting. It is said that the Washington Monument is made of 188 layers of stone blocks, so it is very tall. As you can see, when people stand at the base, it looks massive, 555 feet high. We then visited the Lincoln Memorial, the stately monument honoring Abraham Lincoln, the 16th President of the United States. As soon as we entered the hall, we saw the statue of Lincoln in the center. Directly above the statue, there is an inscription that reads, "In this temple as in the hearts of the people for whom he saved the Union." During the Civil War, when they were divided against each other, his contribution was immense to them. He saved the Union, establishing the federal United States. So to them, he is considered a very important figure. This is also a gathering place for those seeking peace. Civil rights leader Martin Luther King Jr. delivered his famous speech here, "I have a dream." Back before we had the internet, I read the Chinese translation of "I Have a Dream." I thought the content was wonderful. So I started translating it into Tibetan. When I was halfway through, I found that someone had already translated it. Then I looked at my own work and realized my translation wasn't that good, so I didn't finish it. At the time, I was struck by, I still remember, his analogy about an airplane. He said that for the white plane of peace to soar high in the sky, the contributions of the ground crew are indispensable. By this he meant that although he was receiving the Nobel Peace Prize that day, his achievement was made possible by the support and sacrifices of many unsung people behind the scenes. He said that while he was accepting the Peace Prize, many black churches were being burned, and many black people were suffering torture and assassination. Their temples were being set on fire. The way he spoke spoke back then was very moving, so it is said that this was the very spot where he delivered that speech. Leaving there, we toured the Vietnam Veterans Memorial. It is a black granite V-shaped wall inscribed with the names of the members of the U.S. Armed Forces who served and died in the Vietnam War. His Holiness lingered in front of the wall for a relatively long time. He kept chanting the Mani mantra and other prayers. If I recall correctly, it might have been the mantra of liberation through hearing Om Rele Rele Hung Kyu Hung. I seem to remember that, but I'm not entirely certain, so I didn't write it down at the time. He definitely chanted the Mani mantra, but when I was writing the record, since the written word must be accurate, the more I tried to remember, at first I was sure it was the Mani mantra, but then I wondered. I asked some people who were there as well, but they couldn't remember either, so I didn't specify which sutra it was. Regardless, he was chanting prayers. That much is certain. The last stop of our tour was the United States Capitol. That day, His Holiness was in a wheelchair, and Ani Medron was also in a wheelchair. The weather was quite hot. It is another prominent place of the United States, where most inaugurations of the presidents have taken place. The Capitol is a 5-level building, and the most attractive part is the rotunda in the center. Actually, that building with the large dome that we see so often, many people mistake it for the White House. In fact, it is the Capitol. On TV and in the media, this building appears all the time. But it's the Capitol, not the White House. The White House isn't nearly that tall. It's more like a simple house of a nomad. It's not that grand in size. Well, nomad's house might be a bit of an exaggeration. The Capitol serves as a gallery of magnificent paintings and sculptures of historical figures depicting significant events in the nation's history. To the south and north of the rotunda are the chambers of the House of Representatives and the Senate. They witness the passage or rejection of the most important policies of the nation. So, at that time, yes, we were inside. If you go there in the future, you can follow this itinerary day by day. These sites are all centrally located. Even though they aren't far apart, it still takes a full day to visit them all properly. Later, I went back 2 or 3 more times, but it was always for giving teachings, so I never went touring again. This photo was taken right by the Capitol building. Si Kyabje Penor Rinpoche in this photo has passed away, as have His Holiness and Ani Medron. Going by age, the next would probably be Khenpo Namdrol and me. Looking at the first 3 who have already passed, you can really see the truth of impermanence here. The one next to me is named Jigme. Even though there was another Jigme in front of us, it's not that Rinpoche. When I was writing this last year, I had a video call with him. He is living on an island now, though he sometimes visits the US. As for the others, the one behind Penor Rinpoche is Lamang Godrup Dorje. The few of us had a very happy time that day. There was also the nun from the White House and a few others who aren't in this specific photo. Next, origin of the Peaceful Manjushri. Since His Holiness visited these places during the day, that evening he bestowed the empowerment of the Dzogchen Peaceful Manjushri. Before the empowerment, he delivered the following speech. I would like to briefly introduce the origin of the swift bestowal of blessings, a sadhana of Peaceful Manjushri. In 1987, I led a large group of Tibetan monastics. This has been mentioned quite often, but each time it's mentioned, there are slight variations in the details. Since His Holiness spoke at many different occasions, the core content remains the same, so he basically touched on these points, but we didn't. I think the underlying meaning in each instance carries distinct nuances. A group of 10,000 Tibetan monastics and lay people traveled to Mount Wutai in the east, the place where Lord Manjushri actually resides. At that time, there weren't only Tibetans, there were also Han Chinese and Mongolians, along with many foreign tourists on pilgrimage. Together in front of the giant white pagoda that contains a relic of Buddha Shakyamuni, we recited the King of Aspiration prayers tens of millions of times. When you visit Mount Wutai in the future, you'll see the white pagoda at Taiwan Temple in the center. It was originally built by King Ashoka. Although it has been renovated since then, it actually enshrines the Buddha's relics. This pagoda is the iconic symbol of the entire Mount Wutai, now located inside Taiwan Temple. This is a very important place. You must recite the King of Aspiration prayers there. Try for tens of millions of times. If that's not possible, at least dozens of times or once a day. That is also very good. By virtue of the unobstructed power of Manjushri's wisdom, all the people present at that time, from top to bottom, received extraordinary blessings in accordance with their karmic fortune. Those with the best karmic fortune saw Manjushri and received his teachings in person. His Holiness personally saw him back then. I don't have my phone on me, or I'd show you. I have a recording of the Vajra song His Holiness sang, the one he sang when seeing Manjushri at Sudana's cave. Some pop stars have covered it now. It's quite beautiful. His Holiness was certainly among those of best fortune, seeing Manjushri in person, hearing his teachings directly and receiving the blessings of his wisdom. Those with middling fortune experienced this in their meditative experiences. Those with less fortune saw Manjushri's face in their dreams. As for those with the least fortune, I suppose that's what I've become today, they saw signs like the blessing light of Manjushri. In the Annal of Mount Wutai, it describes 10 transcendental signs. It seemed that there was not a single person who didn't receive some blessing. That pilgrimage back then was very successful. I think when we go there in the future, even if we don't fixate on obtaining these signs, we should still seek Manjushri's blessing. I'm not sure many of you have visited since then, right? But when you went, did you receive any blessings? Whether best, least, or middling fortune, it's impossible to receive no blessing at all, right? When our prayer ceremony was reaching completion, His Holiness said that at the time the situation was actually quite serious. Because His Holiness had brought so many people, a deputy director from the State Bureau of Religious Affairs personally led the team. A monk from our Gaze Buddhist Association led 2 working groups to Mount Wutai. They told us, "You are not allowed to hold this assembly." We negotiated and discussed for quite a while. Finally, after much coordination, we were allowed 1 week for our aspiration prayers. We stayed at Pusading and Taiyuan Temple, reciting the King of Aspiration prayers. Later, many people felt like going back, and the authorities also requested that most of us leave. So for those 15 days, we each went into retreat. Those who needed to return did so, while others went into retreat. After those 15 days, the situation generally improved. Then we were able to visit various sites. His Holiness ended up staying for 100 days. Initially, over 10,000 had come, but about 500 stayed behind. The majority of the lay people made aspirations for this and future lives and then returned safely to their own homes. Over 500 monastics who were eager to attain Buddhahood within this life. You see, those people were truly remarkable. Among those 500, they remained at the sacred sites of Mount Wutai for another 100 days. They practiced at each of the 5 terraces, the abodes of the 5 forms of Manjushri, and many other holy places where bodhisattvas and accomplished practitioners had visited. I found a clearer version of this photo. I originally wanted to show it to you earlier, one that is much sharper than this. I found it just a while ago. Regarding practice at other sites, His Holiness said, "During our stay, we monastics mainly stayed at the following several places. One was a solitary place on the West Terrace, where the Qingliang Stone, also known as Qingliang Stone, was located, where Lord Manjushri displayed miraculous powers. The stone His Holiness is sitting on now. On that stone, from the 4th to the 10th day of the 6th lunar month, I gave teachings to my disciples. On the 10th day, as we were making a grand sock offering, rainbows appeared in the sky, as well as Manjushri's body, his lion, syllables, and hand emblems in the form of light. All 500 monastics present saw these directly. Indeed, I still remember that day as if it were yesterday. The Khenpos from that time, and I still chat about it often. The sky that day was so incredibly fascinating. His Holiness performed a Manjushri Dzogchen offering then. We were nearing the end. At that time, I wrote a book, The Annal of Mount Wutai, in Tibetan. I mentioned in the postscript that the draft was completed as we witnessed those miraculous signs. It exists in Tibetan now, but not yet in Chinese. I think I wrote a little bit of a Chinese version last year, but the Chinese content was largely translated from various Chinese sources at the time. Let's stop here for now. You can all see these various miraculous manifestations of Manjushri. All right? The second place was Sudhana's cave below the East Terrace. We'll visit Sudhana's cave tomorrow. Walking around Mount Wutai is a bit tiring.
Kirgana Jirano Chupai Chupun Tsulen Dravasya
Bandharangara Padma Sadarda Bandharangara Padma Sadarda Bandharangara Padma Sadarda